The Love Life and Lose Weight podcast will teach you the art and science of changing your habits around food. I'm your host, advanced certified weight and life coach, Heather Beardsley. I've helped hundreds of women just like you figure out how to stop dieting, lose weight, and love life on the journey to goal weight and beyond. Hey, welcome to episode 45. The question I get a lot that I've been answering for years now, probably hundreds of times, is always, do I have to plan in order to lose weight? I'm going to go over my many reasons why you should plan, but it's probably not for the reasons that you think. So let's just get that out of the way right away. You can be a client of mine, never make a plan, and lose all of your weight. So it isn't necessary to plan to lose weight. Some of my clients can do it. So if you've never planned a thing in your life and you've been able to change your habits, that could be you. But I will tell you that it's probably, I don't have hard data on this, but probably less than 5% of my clients can get success changing automatic habits around food in order to take weight off long term and have it stick. So for the rest of the 95% of us, I really want you to consider planning. So let's address the elephant in the room around planning and the reason why so many of my clients have a hard time with it. And it's because so many restrictive diet programs that we've done have come with a plan about what and how much you can eat or you're allowed to eat. And that is not at all the kind of plan that I'm talking about. So let's just pull it back to basics. The way that I teach weight loss and the way that I've been trained is that you get to eat whatever you want. There are no good foods and there are no bad foods. That's not the same as you get to eat as much as you want. So I teach a body-centered approach to when and how much to eat. And it really comes down to learning how to get in touch with your hunger and satiety signals from your body in order to learn how much is right for you. Because if you're overweight and you have weight to lose, then you've learned habits around eating that cause you to overeat. And you're basically overfueling yourself. And what happens is, we do this for long enough, and what we think is enough food is overeating. It's chronic overeating. And so, I have a client who comes to me, wants to lose weight, but they're also very attached to the amount of food that they're eating. And this is where, all programs, all systems for weight loss are going to include learning how to eat less food. But the difference between what I teach and what is a restrictive diet program tends to be that in a restrictive diet program, they are the ones who tell you how much to eat. Now they can use fancy, formulas based on your weight and your height and things like that. But basically it's some kind of outside authority telling you how much you should eat in order to lose weight. And these are usually like calorie counting programs or macro counting or some kind of other counting game program. And, we've all done these kind of approaches to weight loss. And what happens is they don't have nuances to take into consideration. Let's say, if you're working out, you've had a really hard workout and you have excess hunger, and there's no like nuanced way to approach that. It's just like, suck it up. You are breaking your program if you eat more than your allotted amount according to your counting program. And so what that means is, and truth be told, let's take personal responsibility here. It's not just the program, it's many of our own personal approaches to these programs that are like way too intense, way too much like looking for quick losses and trying to like push past hunger. And that allows overt hunger, which is really, really can be like kind of traumatic for the body, right? Like pushing past hunger, starving yourself, skipping meals, you know, only eating certain kinds of foods, like cutting out whole categories of foods because we think that is how we lose weight. It's just, it's idiotic. Okay. I mean, if you want to eat certain foods because it's your preference, that's one thing. What I'm talking about is some program that takes away whole groups of foods and tells you that, you know, you've got to eat like this in order to control your weight. It's just not true. Human beings are designed to eat all kinds of foods, and it is our own tastes and preferences that come into play with that to decide, like, all right, you want to be a vegetarian, you want to be a vegan, you know, you have certain sensitivities to certain foods. That's all fine. That's all great. But we want to take personal responsibility and use the hardware that we come with, which is our um, hunger and satiety cues that come with our body. We want to learn to pay attention to that. So, I mean, why did we gain weight in the first place if we are so like hardwired with internal regulation mechanisms that help us keep a healthy weight, a healthy, happy weight? Well, it's because, you know, it's what I went over in the beginning episodes of the podcast. You can go back and listen to those. But um, basically, you know, we're hardwired to develop habits to compensate emotionally by using food because we're designed to enjoy food. Food gives us pleasure on the tongue. It allows us to have feel good neurotransmitters going in the brain that give us relief and feel good feelings, lots of distraction from maybe some hard things going on. If you are somebody who coped with life when you were young by eating, you probably noticed weight gain when you were young, or maybe it was later when you went through, you know, a breakup or a divorce or like hard times in your life. And, you know, it's just human to learn to cope with food. And over time, this can become chronic. And therefore, we have chronic situation where we have habits that drive a chronic over intake of calories, right? And those habits are kind of coping mechanism with life. And we can lose weight short term with some of these programs, right? But as soon as life turns around and puts tension and pressure on us, if we don't learn other ways to cope without overeating, we will always put that weight back on. And so I know this is a really roundabout way to come back to planning, but it's a really subtle but important point to know that like planning your food is a tool that you can use in different like intensities throughout your whole life. When you're trying to lose weight, the tool of planning is an interruption tool. The process of making decisions ahead of time allows you to have a reference point so that when you go to like your old habits of overeating, you're going to remind yourself like, oh, wait, I'm not just going to have like that big helping for dinner and automatically go back for seconds like I've been used to doing, you know, because first of all, I planned something that morning. So I'm not just going to make decisions about food from my in the moment thoughts and feelings about what I want. Like, that's fine. But you said you want to lose weight. And so if you want to lose weight, you can't just eat from those same habits of thinking and feeling around food the way that you always have. Because if you do that, then you'll have the weight that you've had. If you want to change your weight, we have to interrupt the process. So let me just give you a quick example. Like if you grew up in Gen X, like I did in the 70s and 80s, many of us smoked when we were younger. That was just like the culture, it was the lifestyle. Many people smoked. I was one of them. And when I was about 27, 28, I was ready to stop smoking. I wanted to stop smoking, but I had this ingrained 10-year habit of a 1 pack a day smoking habit. And it's kind of hard to believe now that I was a pack a day smoker, but I was. So when I think about how I quit smoking, which is how it's an example for you to compare with quitting your habit of overeating. That's what we're talking about. So we take the example of smoking, and I knew when I was going to stop, it meant number one, I would stop buying cigarettes. I would throw all my lighters and matches away. And I would try to avoid the situations in which I associated having a cigarette. And it's the same thing with overeating, right? When you overeat, or if you have certain foods that you overeat, you might want to just not keep them around for a little while. And eventually you'll learn how to manage with them. But in the beginning, when you're doing all this change around overeating and trying to eat less, you're going to want to take those extraordinary measures, just like I did when I stopped smoking. And one of those extraordinary measures was to not visit any bars. You know, I was a drinker back in the day. I used to love to go out for happy hour with my partner at the time. You know, I had bartended for years and been in the restaurant industry, and I just loved going out on the weekends in that environment. Back then, you could smoke in like outside and things like that. Like things have really changed since then. But I knew if I got close to a bar environment, I would want to smoke. So I did not go to a bar for probably 3 to 6 months. I just made a commitment. I wouldn't do that. And, you know, I don't often see a natural like commitment from my clients who want to lose weight about how they're ready to disrupt their life in order to make eating less easier for them. And planning is a great example. You know, I get a lot of pushback of when I ask, like, you've got to make a plan ahead of time. And they're like, no, I don't want to. Like, I just want to be free. Like, I just want to choose. And besides, Heather, you tell me, like, I can eat the foods I want to eat. So why do I have to plan? Well, there's many good reasons. The first one is to practice planning, maybe for the first time, the foods you actually fucking want to eat. This will be the first way that we tell the brain that this is not like some restrictive diet program where all you can have is, you know, cabbage and lean chicken breast and, you know, dry broccoli. That's not what we're doing. You're actually just making decisions ahead of time for what you really want to eat. It's so strange, isn't it? When you think about, okay, I'm going to lose weight, I'm going to make a plan. Everybody goes for like virtuous foods, you know, quote unquote, healthy foods. And when I see this on my clients' plans, I'm like, why are you planning salad every day? And look, I mean, maybe some of my clients really love salad and that's just how they prefer to eat. But, you know, planning allows you to train yourself to disentangle yourself from thinking that only virtuous foods help you lose weight. What I know as a coach is if you only plan to eat virtuous foods, you're going to have over desire for some of the foods you're not allowing yourself to have or to believe that you can eat and lose weight. So the plan is a great way to intentionally introduce formerly considered bad foods or foods that won't let you lose weight, and we interrupt that process and we get you in there planning for those foods, of course not all at one time, right? Like, in my book, you're going to read how I planned for croissants. And that's how I really, really proved to myself I can have croissants and lose weight. That's not just for like the magical people who are always thin. When we have weight to lose, we look at these thin people, we're like, how are they eating croissants? Well, they're eating croissants because they're having them when they're hungry and they're not overeating them. Croissants are just croissants. They're not like, the forbidden fruit of food. If you look at the French and the way that they eat, they're a great example of this. They eat rich, delicious, so-called bad foods, but they eat them consistently, not all the time. And they do it when, it makes sense for them, not every day. And that's something that they come to because they've never demonized foods. If you talk to a French person, they'll say, well, if you really want it, you should have it. Of course you should have it. Otherwise you're just obsessed about it. And this is what I find, my American clients tend to do. They tend to demonize certain foods, think virtuously about others, and then we wonder why we have, recurring thoughts and obsessions about food or really strong cravings. So planning is a way for you to get in touch with how you really want to eat. It might be the first time that you ever allow yourself the ability to do this. It's going to feel really strange. You're going to feel like I've coached some clients who are like, you literally need to help me do this because this feels so wrong for me to write down like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich for lunch. I'm not even kidding. We've been taught through so many, fad diets that bread is the devil and, you can't have any fruit because it has sugar in it and all of these things that have left us with a fear of food. So that's the first reason to plan, just to get comfortable asking yourself, what do I want to eat today? And really considering it, not from a place of like, what should I eat today? Or what's the right food to help me lose weight, but like truly, what do I want? And when you do that often enough, sometimes it's just a few months, you'll see that your brain starts to really relax around its decision making around food. And that's what we want. We want this tension around food choices to get really normalized and just a part of a normal way to think about food. The second reason why we plan is because it's a tool. Planning is a tool to allow you to get really good at making decisions ahead of time. So, I always say, like, when you plan, do your due diligence and make sure that you're having conversations with the people who you're planning on eating with. That you actually look in the refrigerator to make sure that you have on hand the things that you plan, because you want to follow your plan. That's the whole point. You don't want to go off plan, but planning is also, it's not a way to like trip you up or be strict with yourself. And this is why I say, like, don't bother with quantities of food, because that's for your stomach to tell you how much, right? Your sense of satisfaction as you eat will tell you how much you're eating. So don't parcel out like one cookie for yourself. Just write cookies, chocolate chip cookies, right? So this is an art in which you're asking yourself what you truly want to eat. You're thinking about your day. Okay, on a Tuesday, okay, I have a ton of meetings. I have this meeting that goes through my lunchtime. So I know that by the time that's done, I'm going to be good and hungry. All right. When I'm good and hungry on a Tuesday after my meetings, what do I tend to want to eat? And like when I think about it like that, I might be like, oh, maybe like a warm soup and maybe like half a sandwich or something. Like, of course, you just write sandwich there and you don't have to eat the whole sandwich. You're only picking from your little menu of items on your food plan that day. Okay. So it helps you consider what you like. It also helps you consider like what kind of an eater you are that day. You should also look in your calendar to remind yourself of like the cadence of your day and like what happens first, what happens in the middle, what happens in the evening. Um, a lot of times as well, I want you to get into the habit of giving yourself choices. So, a lot of times during the week, especially for my clients who have little kids or families and you're working, some nights it's great. You can make your planned meal for your family or help your partner cook, or it's just you and you have the bandwidth to like make yourself a nice dinner. Um, some days it's a shit show and you're like, there's no way I have the bandwidth to brown taco meat and make myself tacos. It's just not happening. So I just say, like, while you're beginning to plan, just give yourself a choice between, like, I have energy and I'm willing to cook choice for dinner, and then a very simple, I can just sort of assemble it choice for dinner. Um, the other thing that it allows you to do is planning allows you a lot of practice in telling yourself no. This is a key um, habit that will help you lose weight because we know if you have habits of thinking and acting around food that have allowed you to become the weight you are and you want to lose weight, you have to interrupt those habits, tell yourself no, and do things a little bit differently so you can eat a little bit less. Not a lot less. We're not talking about overt restriction, but we're not eating until we're physically full. We're going to stop eating when we are satisfied. We no longer feel hungry, but we're also don't feel like our stomach stretching sensors kicking in. That's somewhere in there is where you're going to figure out when you stop eating. And so your old habit of thinking about food is always going to tell you, no, keep eating. And you have to tell yourself, no, like we don't eat that much anymore. We're always looking for ways to eat a little bit less so we can lose weight. And this is just for like the weight loss period, right? We won't always have to say we're going to stop short of when we want to. But while we want to lose weight, we have to pull the trigger on this. And so saying no to yourself should be expected every day, maybe even 3 or more times a day. Every time you eat, your brains will be like, no, let's eat more. You're going to be like, no, we're not doing that. And even this comes into play with your plan. Like, no matter what kind of amazing lunch you'll have planned on a Tuesday, your brain will look in the fridge. You'll look in the fridge, think about your plan, and your brain will be like, no, I actually want tuna fish instead of a cold cut sandwich. Because let's face it, like your brain has been used to you just allowing it to like call the shots from your automatic thinking about food. But weight loss doesn't happen from automatic thinking. Weight loss happens from deliberate thinking and decisions ahead of time. So you're going to have to tell yourself, no, we didn't plan for that. And a great thing about the way that I teach weight loss is you can just tell yourself, we can have tuna fish tomorrow, or we can even have it tonight if we really want it. We're just going to wait till we're hungry to have it. Because like eating from your plan is not mandatory to lose weight. So this isn't something to ever feel like shitty about. In the example of the tuna fish, let's say, you had a cold cut sandwich on your plan and you really want that tuna fish. You can just say, all right, well, ideally we'll have it tomorrow. But if we really, really, really want it, we can have it for dinner, but we're going to wait till we're hungry. And it's going to be an off plan eat. In other words, I won't have done what I said I was going to do. And, the human propensity is to want to follow up on your promises to yourself. It feels really good when you do the things you say you're going to do. And I think for most of us, if you really think about it, we're going to want to just wait and delay our gratification until we can plan the tuna fish the next day. And I'm not too worried about you, you know, wanting to have it for dinner because I know you don't want to let yourself down. I know as a coach, you want to follow through. Following through on your promises, doing the shit you said you would do makes us feel so good. And it's such a nice byproduct of planning. So, telling yourself no is a key aspect to, like, it's a key ancillary benefit of learning how to plan your food. Okay. It's also planning your food gives you all your data that you need to troubleshoot your weight loss. Not only to troubleshoot, but it gives you all your data also about what's working. So, if you're going to work with a coach, or you're going to, let's say you do it on your own, you're listening to the podcast, you're listening to what I say. Okay. You're planning every day. Before you make your new plan for the day, you need to go back to the plan from the day before and you need to assess and write in what you actually did. So for most of us, hopefully, you're just putting check marks right next to the meals that you planned. And that tells you, yeah, I did what I said. I ate the things that I thought. You can just cross out any food that you didn't eat that you had put on there. That's fine. If you ate anything that you hadn't planned, now is the time to write it in. So in a color, maybe, or in a way that you know that, like, I had this, but I didn't plan for it. You want to note those things so that, I mean, if it's a one-off thing, it's no big deal. But if you always notice that, like, you are grabbing a few pretzels after lunch, but you're never planning for them, you need to start planning for them. This is how you learn to become the better manager of you and your tastes and preferences for food and planning for them. Um, so like when I coach with my clients and they come in and we talk about their results. Okay, did you lose weight this week? Didn't you? If they lost weight, we don't really need to look so closely at the food plan because I know whatever they're doing is working. And we don't need to pay it too much attention except to say, like, just rinse and repeat whatever you've been doing, just, you know, keep doing it. But if you're not losing weight, let's say you maintained or you even gained, we would go back over this 7 days of planning prior to the last weigh-in. And we would just take a look at the food on there and what you actually ate compared to what you planned to eat. And this isn't to like troubleshoot like actual foods. I'm much less interested in that. Like, I rarely ask my clients what they eat. Instead, I say, why did you overeat? Because usually when you assess your plan from the day before, I also want you to note if you ate past enough or if you ate anything when you weren't hungry for it. So you're not only checking to see, did I eat the foods I said I was going to eat, but did I have those foods when I was hungry? And did I stop eating them before I'm physically full? I mean, this is the whole gist of like what I call integrative weight loss, which is using your body signals to regulate when and how much you eat. And then you use your own sensibility and your own tastes and preferences for food to tell you what to eat. That's up to you. It's not up to a program to tell you what to eat. I mean, there's no quicker way to make a woman feel caged in a diet prison than to tell her she has to eat certain foods and she can't eat others. I'm sorry. That is not what the human spirit wants. The human spirit wants to choose food that is delightful and delicious and agrees with you and makes you feel good, right? And yeah, cookies can be a part of that, and so can kale. Okay. There's no good or bad foods. So, this is why planning is so magical for weight loss, because we can look at the plan and identify which foods you're overeating. Okay. That's so key to helping you figure out what's putting pressure on your life that you're overeating. And like, so just for example, let's say, well, I have a client right now who's pretty close to maintenance. And we're just doing some really fine tweaking with um her habits around food. And, I asked her a lot of questions about her habits and what she tends to do around dinner time. Is there any eating after dinner? Is there any snacking when you're not hungry? And it turned out for her, it was grabbing some food, and popping it in her mouth before she actually sat down for dinner. Now, we weren't sure if this was the culprit that was hindering her weight loss, but it could be. And the only way that she would have been able to remind herself that she was doing that was by referencing the plan she had that day. Oh yeah, it was it was taco night, and oh yeah, there was some chips out and some salsa. And she was grabbing some chips and salsa before she actually sat down for the meal. And so we just looked at that as a potential culprit, right? And so it allows you to be a detective just to see, like, what are the little habits where I'm doing some little bit of overeating and I'm ignoring it or I'm not paying attention to it. And I can just watch that. And so, how I would ask her to watch it is like, don't have it when you're cooking. Have the chips and salsa just like you would in a restaurant. You sit down and you're like completely focused on your eating and your meal. Because a lot of times you just mindlessly eat during that time before you sit down and you're not really aware of how much you're eating. And that's what allows those old habits of like just mindless eating to creep in. Okay. So those are the reasons why planning is just magic to help you refine those skills that are so essential for weight loss. It helps you normalize food. It helps tell your brain that this is not a restrictive diet program. You're actually planning for food you want to eat. And in the process, you do that enough, it tells your brain there are no good or bad foods. I can truly eat the things that I want as long as I bring my stomach and my sense of satisfaction with me. Right. And then it also gives us like a blueprint of how we ate that week. So we can go back and identify the things that might be working against us, the habits or the conditions of your life that are putting pressure on you to maybe emotionally overeat. Lots of things. It gives us that blueprint. Okay. So it helps us constrain our choices, do what we plan to do, follow through. And then when you assess every day, gives you a chance to really validate all of the ways that you showed up and you followed through and you did what you said you were going to do. Like those little check marks from assessing the day before, they feel really good. And my clients end up like just loving, just like, yep, that was a great eating day. I loved the way that I ate that day. It felt really good. I felt like I had a ton of energy, or maybe they didn't. And that's also good to know for the next time. And this is how you just evolve in your relationship around food. You evolve in your relationship around your own autonomy, like your choices around food. You just get better and better at being a self manager, like a very keenly aware self manager who makes a plan for how to have a very satisfying relationship around food, even as she loses weight. So, for all these reasons, I recommend that you plan, especially if you're trying to troubleshoot. If you haven't had consistent weight loss, planning is your number one go to so that you have that record and you can go through your plans, spot patterns, and really start to question some of that automatic thinking and the automatic habits around food, which are probably in the way of your weight loss. Okay. So I thought that was going to be quick, but obviously there's a lot to say about planning. Let me say this much. If you're looking for a plan a daily planner. I have a one page daily planning and assessment sheet. I created it for my clients like a long time ago. And a lot of people like it because it helps you keep track of your like the number of times you're overeating in the week. And it helps you stay aware of like how many times you think you can overeat and still lose weight. It just keeps it front of mind so that like 3 days, 4 days after, your weigh in, you're still staying really focused with how you need to eat as far as amounts and how often to help you get that weigh in that you're really looking for, which helps you with success. So give planning a try. You can get a copy of my one page daily plan, food plan, and assessment by going to my website, hbeardsley.com/subscribe. You'll get an email right away with the link to download it. And you just make as many copies as you want. You can, create a packet of 31 of them and just use them every month. It doesn't really matter what planner you use. You might want to look at mine just to see like how I do it. And then you can make your own. Or, I mean, there is no magic planner. The magic in planning is your commitment and your practice of it. It makes you into a disciplined person. The root of discipline is disciple. And, in a religious connotation, we know that a disciple is somebody who is a student, who studies, whatever they're a disciple of. And for you to be disciplined in how you think and act around food will help you to start locking in new habits around food. So you can stop overeating and you can finally like take that weight off in a way that doesn't feel restrictive. It doesn't feel like you have too much hunger. And it puts you in the seat of the decider, the arbiter of what you eat. It's a way for you to take back your control from all of those old restrictive diet plans that felt like they were controlling you. It's just such a wonderful way, like paradoxically, right? Because we say, all right, I'm going to stick to this plan. I've made a decision and now it's locked in. And if initially it can feel like, oh, that's not freedom. But really, if you think about it, once you've made a decision on something, then you don't have to think about it again the rest of the day. And it frees up all this bandwidth for you to not have to think about it anymore. I mean, I read somewhere on Google like how many thoughts we have about what we're going to eat and when we're going to eat. It's like hundreds and hundreds of them. What if you just constrained that to like, less than 5 minutes every morning to do that work, which would free you up to have all of that energetic bandwidth for other things? I think it's amazing. I still plan. I don't plan the way that I planned when I initially learned planning for weight loss. I do it in a much more unstructured way. I plan on a sheet that lays out more like my work day by hour because, I'm meeting with clients sometimes 2 in an hour. So it's right there beside my schedule. And it's also right there next to my to-do list. So all the structure of my day lives together in one planner, and I have it by year. So I've kind of like, I don't have to reinterpret anything. I just change the planner once a year, and it's just so locked in and loaded in my ideal day and my ideal schedule. It's kind of hard for me not to plan. And I really like that. I want that for you. I feel like it's such a great way to feel in charge of, your life and to be the authority in your life. It's a way to take back that authority. So, reminder, the Love, Life, and Lose Weight book comes out 1 week from today. It's available for pre-order on Amazon. You can go to Amazon right now and pre-order it. Otherwise, you can just make a note to go to Amazon on August 15th and buy the Love Life and Lose Weight book. It will help you lose weight. It will help you shake off all that diet mentality and learn how to get in touch with your body, and take charge of your weight and learn how an easy, sustainable way to lose weight and not worry about regaining it, because you're losing it the way that you want to live the rest of your life in relationship around food. So thanks for doing that. I mean, I really hope it helps a lot of people. That's part of my mission. You know, is my whole professional mission is to help women lose weight without restriction and get in touch with their natural tastes and preferences around food so that they can get more pleasure from their life. That eating doesn't have to be this hard thing in your life anymore. So, there's bonuses too for the book. I just wanted to mention this. Once you subscribe to my email list and you get your daily planner, you're going to get a series of, I think it's 4 emails just to welcome you and tell you a little bit about me. And there'll be a place there for you to get your workbook too. I created a 40-page workbook to help you have a space to answer all of the coach homework questions in the Love Life and Lose Weight book. There's coach homework at the end of every chapter. And I just thought it would be a nice way for you to kind of keep pace with the cadence of the book, have a place to write down your thoughts and your reflection. And there's like 3 bonus worksheets in there too that I created. I'm really proud of the book. Thank you for your support. Visit me on the reel on Instagram on the episode 45 reel, and let's talk about planning. If you have questions, if you're stuck, if it's working for you, I want to hear your feedback. Let's keep the conversation going over there. Okay. So stay focused. So long. See you next week for the book launch. Bye. Hey, if this episode was helpful, then let's connect. Visit hbeardsley.com/subscribe. That's hbeardsley.com/subscribe. You'll get a gift from me, exclusive subscriber content, and advanced notice of in-person events.